Matt, welcome aboard to the show today. So happy to have you.
Great to be here.
So tell us about, and keep me honest that I'm saying this correctly. Bip Bap Boop. You gotta love the company just by the name.
So yeah, Bit Bat Bop. I wanted an alliterative name first of all, and um, so I was trying to provide a Wikipedia for kids. That's
Mm,
the ultimate aim that I'm going for. But I started off looking at coloring and looking at that space. So there are lots of companies that offer free coloring pages, and but the quality was really not there. There was a huge audience, and I figured let's start there. I was interested in kind of AI content generation, and to see if I could leverage that to address this space initially. And I started that off a couple of years ago, and I don't think the quality was there at the time, and it continues to obviously get better. But then I started hiring kind of outsourced illustrators in the Philippines, and they've been phenomenal. And just seeing the creativity that they bring to it and putting that online has been yeah, it's been a really fun ride.
So I gotta ask, what was the why behind this? Did you suddenly became a dad, or what was driving the personal journey? Because there's always something.
I wish there was. I wish I had a better backstory other than finding an audience that I felt was being underserved. It wasn't. I'm not. I don't have any kids. So that I always feel a
You're gonna
little
make
bit.
me
Then
you're
why are
gonna
you
make me
doing this?
envious.
So grass is
I,
always greener.
Oh my God, I got three little monsters, and it's I did not have any white hair before they came along. So there you go. So okay, so I need to figure out this connection. You were going down this path of Wikipedia for kids, but then also coloring books. What's the connection between those things, and why do we even need Wikipedia for kids?
Well, I think there's a vast benefit, first of all, in just sharing knowledge and sharing fun content, in getting things that kids can do creatively that take them away from screens. So that was part of the why around the coloring. I was producing all this content,
Mm.
but needed a means of monetization essentially to pay for all the hosting, pay for the illustrators to keep the ball rolling. I started off doing the buy me a coffee, and no one's particularly keen on buying coffee. And I've recently put advertising on there, but hopefully it'll be balanced. I don't want to overwhelm people with ads, and that was a late element. So the coloring books was mainly a case of staying in this space, but also um, sort of expanding into something that I could commercialize to keep the business moving forward.
And what's the how did this coincide? Because you're not in the States anymore, or I should say Amsterdam before that, Berlin before that. Is that correct?
Yes,
Um,
and Chicago
and
before that. So yeah,
and
I've been all
Chicago,
over.
yeah. So yeah, so we studied across the street from each other. So I knew the States was somewhere in the background. Explain so you started almost, is it fair to say, the digital nomad lifestyle way before it was even called that? So take me
Here we have a
back.
story.
There you go. I always find it. I can sniff it out like a pig. You're working at the time for Sears, is that fair? Or near Sears, and you are making, was it a crazy decision? What happened there exactly?
Okay, if you want to go on the digital nomad elements, let's. I'm still at Motorola in Chicago, and almost never working downtown, almost never going out to often the States. And I just read the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim
Hmm.
Ferriss, a wonderful book, and he talks a lot about taking life breaks, about hiring people in other parts of the world to do tasks for you, and about kind of earning dollars and living in other countries. What a great idea! And I'd sort of finished my MBA at the time, so was looking around, and I decided to give that a spin, and back then the tech was a lot wasn't as good as it is now. But so I had to use for voice calls. I had to use Vonage and plug something into something in, and but I spent kind of 3 months in Ukraine, in Kiev, kind of learning the language and working whilst being remote, and then I spent some time in Puerto Rico. But again, whilst I was kind of, to all extents and purposes, working in Chicago, so I've been doing nomading before it became popular. I wouldn't call the other bit that I've been doing the sort of to Berlin to Amsterdam kind of a nomad element. As I was in Berlin for 7 years and Amsterdam for a year, and it's funny now. I've left Amsterdam. I'm in Da Nang in Vietnam, and I intended to do the nomad thing. The nomad thing, I was always kind of keen to travel around and live that lifestyle. But then I've come here and I've hired a team of developers. So I'm not, and we're working on kind of evenings and weekends. So they're doing this, working with me part time whilst I'm building an MVP. And so the nomad thing has again gone up in flames because I need to be in one place to actually deliver product.
And so you've been through many countries over many years, and even though you're not maybe technically moving all the time, you're still in a quote unquote foreign country, although at some stage it starts to feel like home. What have you learned basically moving through the world like this, experiencing the food, the music, the culture? How's it changed you?
So many ways. I think every country teaches you something different. When I first came to the States, I was a little bit resistant to sort of have a nice day culture. But then I loved it. But it took a little while, and then I loved the kind of the warmth, the fact that you were exchanging greetings, and it got me out of a shell. Then I went to Germany, and now it depends what kind of R rating we want here. So I went to Germany, and they had the saunas there. These are kind of legitimate saunas. They're not dodgy in any way, but everyone is bathing naked. And for me, this was a kind of heart rate. My heart rate was elevated the first time I did it. And who low do I bump into but the guy who has just hired me and his wife? So I was there with my now ex-wife, and we bump into my boss first time, and it's like, oh, why is this happening? And yeah, anyway, so it's quite a. You learn something new in each country. That's what I would say.
And now in Vietnam, what's the new experiences there?
What I love is the energy of the people. I came here 20 years ago for a holiday and just rode on the back of a Harley down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and it was great times, but it was gone like a 2-week vacation. And now I'm back, and just the energy that people bring to it. It's a communist country, but the small entrepreneurial capitalism that you see everywhere is great, and just honestly, I think it's like a startup hub that's waiting to happen. So I put adverts in on a local Facebook group, and I started having conversations with these amazingly skilled, talented individuals who are wanting to do that sort of MVP to SaaS route, and it wouldn't have been as easy anywhere else. I think it was more luck than judgment, but there's a huge. They've been investing in STEM for a number of years, and now there's a huge talented workforce that are mainly doing sort of outsourcing and sort of distant from my perspective, distant from the product. And if you come here with an idea, you can pull in some really great people. So I'm really enjoying the ride, and the food is phenomenal. The food is amazing. Just the little street stalls. I went round yesterday to this place. It was in the Michelin Guide, which means I'm paying like $1.50 for a dish, and it felt like the best French bouillabaisse in this clear soup with kind of a combination of pork and fish, and it was just amazing. I drove back on the back of a Grab, which is a cultural phenomenon. You can get a bike, jump on the back of a motorbike, and just go anywhere around the city for like under $1. But my mouth was still tasting this amazing, amazing dinner that I had.
And you're fluent in Vietnamese by now, or how do you interact with the?
Okay. So I've learned German, so it's not like I land in a country and don't learn the language. But and I worked on my Dutch. It never got to a here I I try and speak, and people just look at me like, "What are you saying?" But it's the first tonal language that I deal with, and I'm not even going to go there. But the difference in intonation on words, and my mouth isn't programmed for it, my ear isn't programmed for it. So I'm still trying to get the words in, but it's helpful. But a lot of the times you're there plugging stuff into your phone and letting Google Translate kind of help you out.
So from that perspective, the teams that you're working with fluent English or good enough?
No. This is a funny thing. When I was interviewing them over the phone, or kind of chatting with them over the phone, no problem whatsoever. So clearly skilled at putting stuff through a translator. When we met in person, a lot worse. Even actually when I'd spoken and interviewed someone, they were putting my voice with kind of face to face. They were putting my voice through a translator and then speaking back. So there's a lot of change in the way that you interact with someone when they're not fluent in your native language. But I'd had experience of that in the past. So I spent 3 years working for Preply, which is a Ukrainian edtech company, and there were honestly most people spoke phenomenal English, but there were people who came into a team who didn't have great English, and you just spoke a little bit slower and made sure the documentation was good. So I think you find a way to make it work.
Of all the kind of European countries, the Ukrainians have a really good education for English at a very young age. So all my Ukrainian friends just have wonderful English, and this isn't necessarily in America where they're speaking English on a day-to-day basis. So it's pretty hard. So I've worked with teams all over the world speaking English. They had great English, but there's still huge gaps that come from culture. It must be so much more difficult when you can't even to a fluent level speak the same language. So how do you get over that? How do you still succeed in that environment?
I think FaceTime is really important there. First off, just being able to meet face to face. I think clearly documenting what you want, giving examples, doing whether it's shooting a loom or kind of literally walking through with visual examples, demonstrating what you want, the outcomes you're looking to achieve. I mean, a lot of the time, the guys I'm working with now, they're used to reading Western tech specs and delivering on Western tech specs. It's more the face-to-face communication, and maybe it's my accent that problems picking up, because I think they normally train on US accents. But yeah, it's not a high hurdle. It's not a difficult thing to do. I think people make language a blocker when it really shouldn't be in hiring and communication generally. And I think as long as people have the intent and the patience, a bit of patience, then it's not an issue.
I love it. I found that through traveling, I have learned so much about culture, and very often it slaps you in the face because the things that you think are true and right, you find out that in a different world it's just not so, that the values are different, and you think you're in the right, and then you figure out that no, in that country, in those set of values, you actually did something wrong. And so it's such a wild experience. You are embarking on a new journey. In fact, we're catching you just a bit before you kind of launch the word. Tell us about what led you to this new journey and what you're planning to do.
You're talking about the dynamic, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd been selling coloring books on online or on Amazon, and the advertising was painful. It's a system that's been set up for, I think, profit extraction for Amazon rather than to make things simple for the person that's advertising in that space.
So,
I,
so break this down for us a little bit. Are you basically an author trying to promote a set of books, and you're basically doing the equivalent of paid ads on Amazon to promote your quote unquote book? What does this look like from a perspective of what you're actually trying to do?
Yeah, so from Bit That Bop, based off that platform, I'd gone into coloring books, and I've got like about 27 books out now on Amazon, and um, and so I'm trying to solve my problem of how do I market my product, and clearly I think the manual processes don't scale, and the system in Amazon makes it forces you to do ads. So your ad sales count towards your organic ranking.
Hmm.
So the two are kind of
Oh my
intimately linked.
Lord. So
So
let's just repeat that for a second, that they basically you're paying for placement basically on the organic side, not only for ads, which is kind of somewhat evil, one might say,
it's a genius stroke for profit
for them.
maximization for them. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so I think it's definitely set up to drill prices down for the customer, and but also to extract value from the advertisers. And so in that marketplace, where actually, whilst we're on this point, you get quite a bit of information from the ads API about how your ads are performing.
Mm.
But because you're often being asked to bid over the costs of your product to actually place the ad, or at least the cost per conversion, um, you need to tie that together to the organic performance, which you get no data on, other than this is the total amount that you've sold, not the total amount you've sold on a given keyword or anything like that. So there's a huge information vacuum that's required to understand the system that they've built, and you only get part of the equation. So I think that pushes you down a certain path in how you treat this, but you're needing to pull together lots of different data sets in order to make kind of rational decisions, and it's not an easy task to do manually and at scale.
So before we go down the rabbit hole of kind of keyword optimization, long tail, when you thought about your marketing promotional strategies outside of the Amazon ecosystem, what did that look like?
Um, I mean, people in my space do particularly well on TikTok, on Instagram, and that sort of thing. So I'm pushing down that space as well, and I know you can generate an audience there, which which sort of bypass the need to pay, and so that's potentially. At the moment, it isn't generating. I haven't got that traction, but I think with time and content creation, we've just started pushing out reels and on Instagram and so forth in the last couple of months, and that's a very valid avenue.
I appreciate that. So you're thinking about the social strategy, but you're also thinking about trying to optimize the Amazon game. How do you even approach that? What's the thinking?
Well, first of all, you need to pull in all the data. I think you need to supplement the API data with other metadata, and then I'm looking at how keywords correlate and how you do get the long tail. Because if you look at listening to industry experts, they're taking each keyword almost in isolation. And my hypothesis is there's a relationship between keywords. So if you're selling Space Rocket coloring book for kids aged 2 to 6, and you're bidding and you know how that ad performs, you should have some opinion on Space Rocket coloring book for kids and just excluding the ages 2 to 6, or variations of that. And piecing these different pieces together gives you a map. That's on the keyword proximity. If you're looking at a book, there are other things, data sets that you pull in. How many reviews have you got relative to the competition? What's the star of the review? And so what's your price relative to the competition? So pulling all that in should give you a view on your likelihood to convert relative to the competition and how much you can afford to bid given your profit margin.
So what's the levers that you can pull in this environment? Is it about thinking about other keywords that you're not necessarily using? Is it about using knowing the right price to bid at? How do you kind of think about those levers in terms of being successful?
I think keyword expansion is definitely part of the game. I think there's definitely a conversion optimization when someone lands on your product page. So making sure you have what they call A+ content, which is visual content under the main fold, making sure you've got enough reviews, reaching out to influencers to get videos on the page. So that'll all help with conversion. From an advertising side, I think there's the expanding the list of good keywords that you are bidding on. There are different bids by placements. So you can target top of search, so the placement that appears on the top of the search, the middle of the search page, or on the product page, and being able to isolate those as separate auctions and reducing conflict between those ad groups. It all starts getting very complex very quickly, but it all feeds into their equation. And then really you're looking to get more sales on a given keyword so that you rank that keyword. So there's a strategic aspect where with a given ad budget, it doesn't make sense to spread it across all your products, but rather to get one product to rank highly organically, and then the organic sales will help supplement the payments you're making on advertising, and then you can then go to another keyword or another product.
The message that's coming across is there's so much complexity that could potentially be boiled down and simplified, and all these decisions that could be potentially be made automatically, and you're missing all this information. So I appreciate the perspective. Believe it or not, Matt, we're out of time. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. There's one scripted question that every single guest answers. And it's a hard one because it's very personal. If you had to go back to 20-something-year-old Matt, what would be the advice that you would give him?
Work for yourself earlier. I think we follow what you want to do earlier. I think we get so hung up in working for companies, following other people's processes, and just trapped within those systems. And I think just having the confidence to go out there and follow what you want to do is the advice I would give. Because I think you learn more in that space and enjoy yourself a lot more.
I'll tell you, just based on the stories we've told today and how many countries you've kind of, and cultures and languages and food that you've experienced, I'll give you one of my ultimate compliments, which is you are and have lived a life worth living. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's been a pleasure to be here, Ari. Thanks for having me.